Good afternoon, everyone, dear participants and our resource persons for today. We have come a long way to the fourth day of our 1-week International Faculty Development Program on accelerating equality and empowerment of women in all spheres, organized by the Department of Management and Social Sciences, Ahmadi University in Tashkent. Ahmadi University in Tashkent is glad to announce that we have more than 700 participants who have registered from more than 10 countries. And on the first day, we had 2 sessions by Professor Patel and Professor Vaswani. In the second day, we had very eminent Professor Indira Ramarao and Dr. Supriya Banerjee. Third day, that was yesterday, we had Professor Aruna and Dr. Tara Nair. Today is the fourth day, ladies and gentlemen, and the first session is about accelerating gender equality empowerment through communication media, for which we have Anna Usha Abraham. Ms. Anna Usha Abraham is the Chief Corporate Communication at Google Limited, a leading steel manufacturer in India. She has headed the corporate social responsibility activities for the company. She has over 3 decades of experience in the corporate sector and is currently a consultant with Ananya Foundation and Vacha Charitable Trust. Ma'am, we welcome you. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Shall I start?
Yes, ma'am. If you have any presentation, you can share the presentation.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Manas. And I would also like to thank Dr. Banerjee for including me in this wonderful event. 3 days, the last 3 days have been really very interesting and educative. I also thank Dr. Vibhuti Patel, who so kindly recommended me to this program. Thank you very much, Dr. Vibhuti Patel. I'd like to start with my presentation. Let me just share it for a minute. My topic is accelerating gender equality and empowerment through communication media. Being a communication media professional, this is a topic which is very close to my mind, to my heart and mind. So allow me to take a few minutes on that. Can we imagine a year, a time when women were not allowed to wear pants, keep her maiden name, smoke in public, own property if married, have own passport if married, shop without a male escort, serve as a jury, compete in a variety of Olympic sports, vote, and easily obtain birth control, have control over her body. This is the baggage that we carry. We still carry it. I'm sure many of us have heard the phrase, the woman wears the pants in the house. Where does it come from? Because we were not allowed to do it sometime. Keep her maiden name. Many of us have kept our maiden name, but it's not normal. Though it's not uncommon, but you have to sort of say, no, we want to keep your maiden name. There are even areas there are regions in the country, in India, and I'm sure in many other parts of the world, where the woman has to change even her given name when she gets married. Smoke in public. Although smoking in public is not allowed, but in areas where you are allowed to smoke, if a woman is standing alone and smoking, she's frowned upon even today. Own property if married. Legally, we can all own property, whether married or not. But if you just look at the property ownership, even today, women are minuscule compared to men. Have own passport. Imagine a time when the moment you got married, if you wanted a passport, you had to be part of your husband's passport, like how children were later as a part of the mother's passport. That's the kind of situation women were in. Shop without a male escort. And that is why today, even today, women are known to be shopaholics. Men keep complaining about it. There are so many memes about and gifs about, men getting bored because they were forced to be an escort to women. Serve as a jury. Imagine, we were not allowed to serve as a jury because women are emotional, not capable of rational thinking. The Olympic sport is a very interesting part where the first person who participated, women were not allowed to participate in marathon. And the first woman had to disguise herself as a man. She wore a hood and covered herself so that people couldn't identify her and ran. And it was the male sports people, the co-runners, who sort of supported her because she was afraid to even take a glass of water from the water stations. Voting rights were hard fought and won. Birth control, even now we know abortion and things like that, women have no full control over their bodies. But who gave these rights to men? Men got it, but women had to fight for it. And we still carry the baggage. Over the next few slides, I'd like to show you a few more things. It's not small. Where are we today? The global gender gap stood at an average of 68.1% in the year 2022, according to the Global Gender Gap Index published by the World Economic Forum. This is an index that benchmarks the current state and evolution of gender parity across 4 key dimensions. And at the current rate, which is a very slow rate, it'll take 132 years to reach full parity. None of us are going to be alive if we don't do something. And that is why the topic accelerating gender equality is so important. We will not be alive to reach full parity, equality, if it goes in this space. The 4 parameters are economic participation and opportunity. The global average is at 60.3%. Health and survival, we are at 95.8%. Educational attainment is at 94.4%. Political empowerment is at a very low of 22%. Who are the top 10 countries? And they have managed in the year 21 and 22, the same top 5, they have remained on the top. Iceland. Iceland is a very interesting country. Of course, they have very few people, but still they have done very good in terms of gender parity. They are at 90.8% this year. Finland is 86%, Norway 84%, New Zealand 84%. The reason I have put these 2 is that I wanted to show the evolution in the last, you can't really show the evolution, but the growth. You can see in 21 and 22, other than New Zealand and Iceland, the others have not shown progress, but they have come down. This is probably the effect of COVID, and even whatever growth has been achieved, it is very, very slow. India stands 135 among 146 countries at 62.9%. The lowest is no guess, Afghanistan at 43.5. I think Dr. Vibhuti Patel did mention about how war can affect gender gap. You can see it. Uzbekistan was not part of the 146 countries. So those of you who wanted to know about Uzbekistan, I'm sorry, they did not participate in the survey, which is done every year by the World Economic Forum. So coming to my topic of communication media and how we can accelerate the gender equality. Communication media includes newspapers, television, websites, and other digital forums. Entertainment is also part of that. Films, cartoons, videos, all these make a difference. Advertising, signage, social media, language, clothing, stock pictures, photographs of representation. These are all part of mass communication media, and they all play a role, a very important role. So let's look at women in media. We often talk about, the media is not supportive and media is like this. You can see when women in media as presenters, whether it's radio or television, they have achieved 46 and 55% respectively. the number of women there in media. And as reporters too, they are 37%, 40. So the average is at 40%, which is probably a better average than most of the other professions like engineering or any other profession. Here, McKinsey has done a study of women in media against compare it with women in industry in USA. Media is also the 15 participating media companies were in the US. So this is only in the US. The reason I have put this slide here is to show you that women still have not broken the glass ceiling. At entry level, we are almost on equality with equal levels with men, almost, not there, but almost. But media, we are there. But as they grow higher, there is a major gap. This 27% in F is a very serious thing. From 42, it drops drastically. So they actually cannot break the glass ceiling. It goes up when it is board level, more because of legislations which insist that women should be there or they are part of the owners. So you can't really look at the board level as breaking the glass ceiling. It is at this level where from 42%, they come down to 27%. They always stop before the ceiling. The women in the news media, that is not the women who are as employees, but unless there is a lot of news about women, women are news makers themselves, they are being used as sources, they are being used as experts. You will not start accepting women as a part of the mainstream, which is very important. You can see that in the 10 years, we haven't, increased much. Our presence haven't gone up much in the news, whether it's newspapers, televisions, or radio. The growth from 24 to 25%, 24% to 26, 22 to 26 in radio. But it's not very much. We still don't make news. Women are still not being used as sources. Women are not used as professionals to talk about something. Women don't make news. Let's see what were the major topics where women were identified, where people were identified, where women stood out. Again, the maximum is 30% in science and health. Don't get misled thinking, oh, see, in science, we are being, women are being, written about or being used as sources. No, they're not. I'll just come to that. Social and legal, 32. All the rest is only 30, below 30, which is very sad, which is extremely sad. Not that 30 is good, but it just shows how these are the major topics in which any news medium has, and in that women are hardly seen. When you look at it by occupation, those women who have come up, who have been mentioned or have been used as sources, when you look at occupation, you see they are always as parents or social workers, child care workers. So when you say science in the earlier place, this is where it's a health worker, social worker, child care worker, or women and service provider, non-management worker, unemployed people. There it is always above 40 and so on. When it comes to science and technology professionals, engineers, or agriculture or anything like that, we are all below 20%, which is very sad, whether it's police, military, paramilitary, sports persons. We have had such outstanding sports persons like Serena Williams and so many other outstanding sports persons, but they have never been making news as much as the men do. It's just 14%. So by occupation, when you look at, it's only when it is, something to do with children that women are come into the news. Which are the 10 topics where women were, the top 10 topics where women mentioned? Women's participation in economic process. Again, it's informal work. We know women are maximum in informal work, whether it is domestic work or any kind of work, informal labor is always with women. So they are there. Beauty contests, women's movement, feminist activism, birth control, fertility, gender violence, family law, family code, child abuse, family relations, HIV and AIDS, sexual harassment is number 10. There's nothing in the mainstream economics. There's nothing in the mainstream science. Women are not there. They're invisible. It's not that there are no women in such areas that you can't find women. There are plenty of women, but they are never the source for news. If you look at it, I would put the main pillars to achieve gender empowerment and equality as laws, which should be conducive, which should be helpful, which should be proactive and progressive. Education, people should know their rights. We should continue to educate people about the need for empowerment. Society, where all the professionals come in, where everybody in society contributes, the masses can contribute. We have to change the baggage, clear out the baggage we carry, and so on. And media would be the fourth pillar. Reason because even if you have all these three, it needs to be pushed. In advertising terms, like you say, it's a reminder medium. You have to keep, hampering it. You have to keep harping about it. You have to keep talking about it and reminding people that women are part of the society, or 50% of the society. So the media has a role to either construct or destroy the entire, growth towards empowerment. Let me tell you how the media can change the story. And we have to be aware of this and call it out the moment we see it, when we read something. This is a news coverage of a sexual assault, which was Lara Logan, who was sexually assaulted. One newspaper had a headline saying, "Egypt unsafe for women." Imagine, it's a sexual assault. And you've changed the story already with this headline, "Egypt unsafe for women." So you're drawing your attention towards Egypt. Is the rest of the world safe for women? No. But we've already, sort of made our head to think that, it's because it's in Egypt. One newspaper reported it as, "Logan has recovered to the point that she was released from the hospital on Wednesday and is now at home with her 2 young children. Sources familiar with the situation say that she has been in remarkably good spirits despite her ordeal." This few words puts a kind of doubt in our mind. She must not have been really brutally sexually assaulted. Sexual assault, brutal or not, is sexual assault. Is she not allowed to be in remarkably good spirits after the ordeal? Is she supposed to be crying and feeling, going through psychological problems all throughout her life? Such statements are very, very negative, and the media is to blame for this. Here's another report. As CBS News, she was no ordinary reporter. As CBS News chief foreign correspondent, Lara Logan has reported extensively from the front lines in Afghanistan and Iraq, sometimes coming under fire while embedded with the US military units. She has repeatedly put herself in the line of fire, but an Egyptian mob celebrating the toppling of Hosni Mubarak on Friday turned out to be more dangerous for Logan than wars fought with bullets and bombs. Again, it's about Egyptian. It's because she went to Egypt that she was sexually assaulted. When she was going to dangerous places embedded with the US military, there was no problem. See how the story is changing. It's not about sexual assault. It's not about why was she assaulted? Why is it unsafe for women? What are the problems that a journalist face? No, you're changing the story. Again, another report. Logan went to Tahrir Square simply because she was drawn there by the remarkable spectacle of the protesters who had gathered by the hundreds and thousands over 18 fateful days, the sources said. Imagine, here is a chief foreign correspondent going to cover a big event, and the paper says, drawn there by the remarkable spectacle of the protesters. Yes, she was not going there to do a job, but she got, carried away and got into the crowd. See how the story is changing? And let us remember that numerous male Western journalists from CNN, Fox News, the New York Times, Washington Post were attacked, beaten, and arrested when pro-Mubarak supporters tried to turn the tide of the demonstrations that were threatening to end this 3-decade grip on power. This is so important. Earlier, all the other topics which I was talking about, which said was that, they were celebrating the event. While here you can see that they were the Mubarak supporters who were trying to not let such coverage. They were trying to hide what was happening. And many men were also assaulted, But of course, people only talked about Logan. And she was trolled on social media and other media platforms saying, why did she go there? This Anderson Cooper, just a few hours after Lara Logan was sexually assaulted, was also assaulted, beaten, and hurt. But nobody asked him, why did he go there? Well, she was asked. That's the way media can change the story, and we have to be aware of it, and we have to call it out. That is our responsibility. Later, it comes out that it became clear during the 48-hour period that journalists were being deliberately targeted as a tactic to minimize the coverage of the revolt. So it was a very clear, cold-blooded, as you say, cold-blooded murder, whatever you say. It was a very clear way, like how rape is used for in war. Similarly, this is a very clear-cut thing. You don't want coverage. If there are women journalists there, rape them, sexually assault them. Even the men were, beaten up. But the entire story and the coverage made this particular woman reporter, correspondent, shown in a bad light. Questions on why was she there, or she was just drawn to this, fantastic thing happening. Nothing about the importance and how the story was being turned. This is not a one-off story. Here's another news coverage of a major legal victory for trans women. The story is about achievement of a trans woman prisoner's right to be transferred to the female prison from the male prison in the federal district in Brazil. The article has an indirect quote from the trans woman, who is the main subject in the news. Not even the judge who presided the case is mentioned by her name, a woman judge, not mentioned. Despite the fact that the story is about an important achievement for trans women, the article features a man as a spokesperson for the LGBT community, and he is the only person interviewed and is identified by name along with a minister who also happens to be a male. The entire news coverage lasted 1.5 minutes, although it was an important event that deserved much longer coverage. So keep the women out, trans women or any other woman. It's always in the news, the men who are being quoted. They have a say on everything, not the women, even if the news is about them. Here's another coverage which came out recently, just on May 2nd in the newspaper in India. It was about this women supportive enterprise, Urban Company, which is bringing jobs to women in India, the headline said. Urban Company claims to employ the maximum number of women gig workers and claims to be gender friendly. And within the article, while I was reading it, within the article, I noticed they were talking about the training that the Urban Company gives. During her training, Urban Company had warned her that if a client asked her, "Are you married?" Dylan should nod rather than tell the whole truth, that at 45, she was already widowed. because she didn't want to put off her client and risk getting a low rating. And this is a company that is supportive of women, sticking to stereotypes, imagining that their clients don't like widowed women and would give her a low rating. Nothing to do with the work that she was doing. This was again a spat. This is the reason I have brought this up is because it was reported in a very respectable, one of the most respectable online media in India. And the report was basically just saying what happened, because social media had all sorts of stories. So this report was just exactly saying what happened. But it said, yesterday at Sohna's Road's Nukadwala restaurant, a middle-aged woman condescendingly told 30-year-old Shivani Gupta, who was wearing a dress, to come and sit down next to her. The story was about a woman wearing a short dress, and this other woman called her and said, "Come and sit here. Why are you wearing such short dresses? Don't you feel ashamed?" or something like that. And the spat became very ugly. But did the report have to mention middle-aged woman and 30-year-old Shivani? This is trying to put in the stereotypes of, the old aunties, Benjis, the old people always look down on the younger ones, and so on. Stereotype. We all have the baggage. Such a wonderful news, online news portal. So all of us can fall into the trap of stereotyping, and we have to be careful. We have to keep asking ourselves every time we are writing something or saying something or posting something, is there something that is, part of my baggage? We all have baggage, and we have to remember that. Stereotyping and victimizing women in media. News media, we must realize that news media is not concerned about making choices safer for women, but about how making independent choices comes at a cost for a woman. We often hear this, that you want to make a choice to stand out, you have to take the consequences. That is the emphasis. The media coverage individualizes every crime as a case study of choices and the consequences of the new free woman. We have seen so many news media, so many crimes being reported, and it's always because the woman made the wrong decision, the wrong choice. That is not the issue. This is how media has the power to change the story, and that is why I call it the fourth pillar. Media plays a crucial role in achieving gender equality, as it can help create awareness on social injustice, get society to participate, motivate them to participate, break taboos and gender stereotypes, demand accountability from decision makers. As a newspaper columnist, Laura Gill, once said, I learned about the good, the bad, and the ugly sides of the media. For example, how journalists often, perhaps unknowingly, transform women social leaders' strong, active narratives into stereotypical, victimizing portraits. This is very, very dangerous. And if we see it, it is up to us to call it out, post it on social media, use as many tools as possible to bring it up so that even the journalists are aware of it. She also realized the positive power that media can perform. I came to see journalists not only as simple messengers, but actors of change. And that is why the other one, when she said middle-aged woman, 36-year-old, and so on, we are actors of change. Even if it was a middle-aged woman, that did not make a difference in the news of what happened. Why did you have to mention it? Ask questions, find out. So when you speak, when you do whatever you do, keep asking questions to yourself. Let me not go on, blaming the media. We must realize media is part of society. The women face the same bias, the same threats, the same risks. Globally, female reporters have often been confined to soft stories, feature writing, like in any company or any place where you are competing with the men. It's always that you do the soft part, you give this, you serve the tea, you be the host, and so on, while men get away with the best projects. Insecurity as a major cause for concern, including prevalence of sexual harassment in newsroom, is another problem. According to UNESCO's 2020 Global Survey on Online Violence Against Women journalists, 73% of the surveyed professionals had been targets of online violence in the course of their work. 25% had received threats of physical violence. 18% had received threats of sexual violence. 20% have been attacked offline after violent threats online. When you get a violent threat, often people say, ignore it. But you can see 20% of the violent threats have actually been conducted offline. These threats of violence and abusive behavior towards women journalists range from government authorities, criminal gangs, to their co-workers, bosses, sources, and subjects. You can see a media organization is no better than any other place. The threats are the same, the bias is the same, co-workers are the same. So they are a product of society, and it is most important that there is training and support. There are a few organizations which provide training and support and work for gender equality and justice within media and society. They at least have this, and there needs to be many, many more. Now, let's go into stereotyping. We have seen stereotyping in media, but I would like to talk about the stereotyping in advertising, photography, signage, entertainment. Take anything that is mass media. There is a stereotyping. We are victims. We are part of it. We carry the baggage. Early advertisements were mainly in-your-face stereotyping, the macho man and the delicate woman. In the early mid-1900s, men were encouraged to shave, drink, flirt, and maintain leadership roles, that is patriarchal roles, in the home and out in the world. They were also under pressure. Towards the close of the 20th century, men became more sexualized. Meanwhile, ads for women were more critical. Many stated outright that women needed to be sexy, thin, and obedient. That's how this whole thing of women, sexy models, thin models, you look at them and you think they will just fall. Anorexia and all those problems came up with this. Now, stereotyping is more subtle, but the message remained the same. Everyone had a role, and you'd be judged if you didn't stick to it. That is the problem, and that is where we have to take off the baggage. Look at these early ads. Husband pleasing coffee. Imagine selling a coffee, but this was, of course, the old time ads. Husband pleasing coffee. Here's an adult woman carrying a teddy bear and holding a man's hand. Women are always with aprons and in the kitchen. This is the kind of man that hears a real man's ale, the macho man, the patriarchal man. Don't worry, darling, you didn't burn the beer. She must have burned the cooking. Again, she's wearing an apron. Women don't leave the kitchen. I'm not sure whether you can read the copy, so let me read it out for you. This is the most unbelievable copy. We all know a woman's place is in the home, cooking a man a delicious meal. But if you are still enjoying the bachelor's life, don't have a little miss waiting on you, then come down to Hardee's for something sloppy and hastily prepared. A woman's place is in the home, cooking for a man, cooking for a man. Second is that if you are still enjoying a bachelor's life, married life is never enjoyable, still enjoying a bachelor's life, and don't have a little miss waiting on you. She's just waiting on you, hovering around you. Then come to Hardee's. This was the kind of advertising. This is the kind of baggage that we have. It's not so out loud in your face now, but we still have that baggage. Look at the signage. There's always men at work. Women are never at work, you know. So the signage also shows a man. Men on the cycle, the cycling lane shows men on cycling. We always show women in pink and men in blue. A teacher is always a woman. A nurse is always a woman. Look at this ad for a vacuum cleaner. The man is reading a book with a pipe and looking very intellectual while she is cleaning. Yeah. And here's again stereotyping a male. A big body-built man has a tender heart of carrying probably his own baby. And this ad is very interesting. This is Happy Women's Day. They're trying to promote women, but let's look at the copy. Look like a girl, act like a lady, think like a man, work like a boss. Think like a man. Remember, women were not allowed to be part of the jury. We cannot think rationally. Only men can. The baggage that we carry is unbelievable, even today. These are some ads and, free photographs which can be used. You can see a child playing with a truck and a male playing with a doll. A woman probably doing some office work while a man is cooking. Both are playing with the doll. And whenever we have to use any reference picture, search. If you search for an engineer, you get most, free pictures for engineers. You always get men, but keep searching till you get a woman. Doctors, all these professionals, when you need to use a reference picture, try and use women and try and make it intersectional by using women from different regions. These are the welcome changes. In Bombay, few places have a woman's picture in a dress, a picture in a dress instead of a male. And this is supposed to be asexual, neither man nor woman. You can see that the fork of the dress is a little low, so then you don't know whether it's a pant or a long dress. You can see here, it's very clearly male. This is the old signage, and this is the new signage where worldwide people are moving towards. When in Bombay, we started the signage, when I think it was in World Year, people in Bombay will know, started this. Many women's organizations said, oh, it's nothing big. We don't need such tokenism. Tokenism is important. We have to be seen. This, as we call, is a reminder medium. Women have to be everywhere, as much as men are. It's not just men at work. Why do you need to have a picture? Just have work. You can have a spade and some, look at the picture. Even just the spade and the mud would be enough to give the meaning without the male man, or even mentioning men at work. Even these tokenisms matter. Let us not say these are trivial and doesn't matter. They do make a change. Positive developments that happened in the recent past. Acknowledging the role stereotyping has had on society, the UK banned advertisements in June 2020 showing people failing to achieve a task specifically because of their gender and depicting stereotypical personality traits. They're not allowed to keep showing only a girl playing with a doll. They have to show both the genders or just the doll. It's a very, very good move. And once there is a legislation, people will follow. Here's another very important thing that Iceland is number 1 in gender gap, and see what they keep doing. In 2018, Iceland became the first country in the world to make it illegal, resulting in a fine, to pay men and women in the same job differently. There can be no gender gap in payments. And how did they do it is more important. One major difference between this law and the Equal Pay Act in the United States is that the burden is no longer on the employee to make this claim. The onus is on the companies to prove that they are paying men and women equally as a matter of general review. Thus, women are not required to become detectives themselves to find out if they are being paid the same as their male colleagues. It was very difficult for us to beat the gender gap in terms of payments because we never knew what was being your male colleague would earn. You couldn't go and ask the person, hey, tell us what you earn, right? So here it is the company who has to prove it, which is a huge, huge difference. You can see why Iceland is number one. Bringing all genders into the mainstream. Transgender representation in advertising has come a long way over the decades. Estimate shows that global LGBTQ community has at least $3.7 trillion in purchasing power. Data indicates that compared to generic ads, queer inclusive ads can also help consumers remember brands better, inspire higher priced purchases and foster a more progressive company image. Remember, companies are very, very concerned about their image. So this is a very good statement and it needs to be pushed. But two executives who supervise Bud Light's marketing collaboration with transgender TikTok star Dylan Mulay were put on leave after there was a public backlash on social media. When there was a backlash, the company backed out and put those people who were responsible for the ad on leave. If many more people went on social media and supported it, the company would perhaps not have done it. You have to be there in numbers. You have to make your voice heard and not just talk about it. You have to do something. And social media is made it accessible to every single person, to everyone. Nike also used the same person and has received a lot of criticism, but they continue to do it because they use the same person for the new model in sports bras. But they continue to do it, although they did receive criticism. The fight for justice was never easy and can never be easy, but we all have to participate in it. In a hugely unusual move, a designer in the southern Indian state of Kerala has launched a new collection of saris featuring two transgender models. She was actually, it's a designer sari show, and she's used transgender models. If you will look at modeling, you will remember that earlier, the black models always faced problems. Even now they do, but probably in a reduced state. Now it's important to bring in transgenders. This is a very good ad, which if any of you can go to YouTube and see it, it's a beautiful ad about making transgenders inclusive. There are many more ads, which I take up if I have time later. We need to discard the baggage. We keep talking about respectable modernity. Don't wear short skirts. You can come to a pub, but don't wear revealing clothes. Respectable modernity, respectable femininity. Don't burn bras. Have a respectable femininity. Dutiful daughter, wife, makes a mark in the global economy. This statement, actually, I would like to take a little time on that. This is about a woman who became the global CEO of a multinational company, a huge, big, achievement. And when she was interviewed, she spoke about how when she was made this president of this company, the global head of this company, she was so excited, but that day she had to work late. And when she came back home, she drove back home and she was so excited to share it with her family. It hadn't yet gone to the media and she wanted to share it with the family first. She got out of her car and her mother stands at the doorway and says, go and buy milk. Go and buy milk. There's no milk at home. So she says, Mom, but I want to share with you some very good news. I want to share with the family. She says, no, there's no milk. Go and buy milk. So she says, what about my husband? Isn't he home? She says, he's resting. And then she goes back into the car, buys the milk, and comes back. She was trying to prove that she was still this dutiful daughter, dutiful wife, although she had become a global head of a multinational company, Fortune 500 company. She still was this dutiful daughter. We all have this baggage, this urge to show that we are this dutiful daughter. And she was proudly relating this incident. She has related it several times. Women are either glorified or persecuted. We know that. The women's beauty is often compared to the moon, while the man's strength is compared to the sun. Any form you will have when you have to have fill in a form, it's either Miss, Mrs., MS, or Mr. Why not just MS and MR? Why do you need Miss, Mrs., and so on? How do you discard the baggage? Let me also relate another story in BBC. How did women come into, how they increased the number of women being used as sources. There was this person who decided that, from now on, they gave out a circular saying from now on, every source, if you're using any source, you have to have 50% of men and 50% of women. So this was given out by a producer of a particular program. And immediately they said, the people who are on this list said, oh no, it's very impossible to do it. We won't get enough of female judges. We will not have many females in such important posts where we can, take as a source. We can't achieve it. But the producer insisted and said, try it. And within a year, they realized there were more women than men. So it's just the question of making the effort. Muhammad Ali, this is very interesting. I was listening to one of the old interviews of Muhammad Ali when he was young, where he said, have you ever thought, why is everything black shown in a bad light? Black money is bad, white money is good. A black cat crosses your path is bad, while there's no problem with a white cat. He was trying to bring out, how black people have the baggage that the black people carry, because black is always associated with negativity. Angels are white, devils are black, and so on. It's very interesting. He even talked about, I think it was yesterday, we talked about how there are, in media, in terms of storytelling, how we can slowly put in things, stereotype ideas about women and girls. He spoke about Tarzan being a white man in Africa who could speak to the animals there, while the Africans couldn't. The white man, right? The king of the jungle is a white man, not the people living in the jungle. To understand stereotyping, this is a DNA test to understand whether stereotyping and whether we do have baggage. There was a very good test done by Unilever. They called all their advertising copywriters from across the world for a meeting, for a training session. On the first day, they spoke about, a product, and they wanted people to try out writing copy, and they all wrote copy. They also requested each of them to give some part, a hair or something of theirs, so that they can do a DNA test with their permission. 2 days later, the results of the DNA test came, and it was shown that everyone had some connect. We are a mixed race of blood, right? The DNA shows that each of us have either African or some other country blood. There's a mixture. We are not pure blood, pure DNA. No human being has a single DNA. So the DNA showed that people came from, Mexico, Africa, and blah, blah. So after they revealed this, each of them were given a chit with what is their DNA, what was the result of their DNA test. 4 days later, when they were asked to write a copy for the same product with the same details, there was a difference. They did not have the baggage of this is how a white man thinks, or this is how a black woman thinks, or men think this way, or women think this way. So we do have baggage. We have to accept that everyone has a baggage, and we have to be aware. Here, it's about dressing. I remember people asking about the sari in one of the sessions. These are three very, very powerful women who have made it in the political field. Here's Theresa May, the former Prime Minister of UK, saying, throughout my political career, people have commented on what I wear. That's just something that happens, and you accept that. But it doesn't stop me from going out and enjoying fashion. I also think it's important to be able to show that a woman can do a job like this and still be interested in clothes. There was a time when women, if you were interested in clothes, people sort of said, oh, she's one of those who are frivolous and things like that, or just, interested in fashion and not an intellectual. Here's Angela Merkel, a well-respected person, the most powerful woman in Germany and the EU, is aware of the complex messaging system her very appearance has become. It wasn't always without headaches. In 2008, Angela Merkel attended the inauguration of Norway's new National Opera House in Oslo. For the occasion, she wore a customary black theatre gown with a deep cleavage. The following morning, that image replaced front-page news across Europe. It remains a case study about reckoning on sexism in politics and media. When she was asked, this is what she said: in any event, there certainly wouldn't be a discussion like this with a man as a chancellor. There wouldn't be, right? So she was not expected to wear a long gown with a huge cleavage. But this is how you can use it to your, advantage. Here's another very well-respected woman who's no more the head, Jacinda Ardern, used fashion as a tool rather than being afraid of it being criticized as mere frivolity. The eternal old-fashioned fear for politicians, especially women who want the focus to stay on policy. So you dress down kind of, As a woman in politics and a woman who has worn New Zealand fashion throughout her career, Ardern has managed to walk that fine line, though not without criticism. She clearly understands the importance of fashion, but does not want it to define her. Clothing is a tool for presentation and a subtle way of communication. Use it to your advantage. Why is it not going? So as we come to the end, almost to the end, I'd like to say it's time to shift gears, time for change. We need to promote stories of exceptional men who broke stereotyping of women. They need to be portrayed as progressive and modern in such a way that more and more men aspire to be part of the story. Let us not make this fight exclusive for women. Let us make men to feel that they want to be part of it. Appreciate small tokens as well. Let us not say, oh, it's just a token. We are not interested in tokens. You have to appreciate everything matters. Every drop in the ocean matters. Individuals and organizations making small tokens too need to be appreciated and motivated to make larger transformations. Keep promoting, pushing the stories that need to reach millions of people around the world. Keep sharing them on on social media. Use social media, FB, Twitter, to talk about this. Talk about empowerment, talk about issues. This can be done by individuals and organizations. Bring in legislations, insist on 50%. If we are 50% of the population, we should be 50% in everything. mainstream gender talks, it shouldn't be exclusive. It should be inclusive. Always include at least one discussion on gender in every discussion. Over the last 3 days, we have seen you can give a gender angle to health, you can give a gender angle to so many other things, to economy, to finance, to everything. So always include the gender angle, whatever the topic is. If you're talking about politics, bring out the gender angle. Have one talk about the gender angle. Push for gender studies as part of school curricula. You need education. You need people to understand it. Keep pushing it. And here's another thought. Corporations are rated for their financial performance, transparency, adherence. You have this ratings of plus, 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 plus A or A plus, and so on. Why not include DEI? And then rate them on that as well and make it a very prestigious rating. Can we do this? And each one of us, many of you are students, and many of you may be part of the interviewing committee. Almost all corporations mention that they are an equal opportunity employer. You can see that everyone in their vision or mission, or they make the statement they are an equal opportunity employer. So when you are at a job interview, can you ask, after the interview, they always give a chance for you to ask questions, and the things that you should ask is, what is the gender breakup in your senior management? What are the gender-friendly policies that you have adopted to ensure you are an equal opportunity employer? The reason, if you keep asking this, companies will become aware and ensure that there are women in senior management. They will keep stating the policies, and they will ensure that they have policies which are gender-friendly. Unless we ask, unless we make companies aware that by just making a statement of equal opportunity employer is not enough, keep asking. Companies are very, very sensitive towards their image. They will make a change. Likewise, those of you who have the privilege to be on the interview panels, ensure that there is an equal distribution of genders. Can you insist on employing more women and non-binary persons on the panel and in the companies? Can we consciously use gender neutral terms like sportsperson, batter? Today, they don't say batsman, they say batter. Chairperson, don't even say chairman if it's a male, just say chairperson at all times. Executive manager, not lady doctor, but doctor, and so on. Talk about it at every platform. At every platform, every opportunity, always talk about the gender issues and acknowledge that there is a gap and that's the only way we can accelerate. Otherwise, it'll take 132 years. We can all participate every day. We can challenge the norms and attitudes that support gender discrimination, call out the bigotry through letters. Whenever you see an article, write to the editor, put it on social media, start a discussion, send letters to elected representatives if you don't see it in the political field. Corporate bodies, write, question, and other bodies of authority, keep bringing it up, and it will make a change. We do have the power. Be aware of methods to change the story in the media. We have seen those examples. It happens every day. It happens every day. Accept that there are several paths, methods, and tools that contribute to making gender equality a way of life. It's not just one way. There are several things. Everything contributes. Reach out to other women and like-minded people to make your voice heard. The numbers matter. Encourage colleagues and friends to stand up for themselves. Be aware of the baggage each one of us carry in our everyday life. Always ask questions to yourself before you make a choice. Diversity, equity, and inclusion means nothing if there is no participation. It is up to us to participate. And as I end, I always love to bring out this poem, Fear. But this is not about fear, but I would like to still say, It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the paths she has traveled, from the peaks of the mountains, the long winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean because only then will fear disappear, because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but becoming the ocean. So we have to take the risk, and it's not about, becoming a man, but becoming people, becoming part of the humanity. Thank you. That's all I have today. And I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you, Ms. Anna. Yes, there are a couple of questions here, but before we take up the questions, I'd really like to thank you for giving us such an interesting presentation. Most of our participants are appreciating the presentation, and I'm sure not only for me, but for most of our participants, the presentation was an eye-opener. Because a lot of things that are persisting in the society, we are just closing our eyes to it. Or maybe I think through your presentation, I thought that before empowering the ourselves or empowering the people, we should first sensitize ourselves that what are the things that are happening in the around us. That is very important for us to know. On the similar lines, there's a question, I think most of it you had answered in your last slides, but one of our participants has asked the question about is it possible to remove all such stereotypes which prevails in the occupation and in other aspects of life, so that we can have a gender neutral society? What measures can be taken to remove these stereotypes? I think some of the answer you had already given in the presentation, if you would like to throw some light.
Yes. We are all victims of stereotyping, and we're all participants also of stereotyping. The only way is to keep asking ourselves, are we stereotyping? Are we reacting in a stereotypical way? Or if we are not, then go ahead and make a noise. And to call out such stereotyping, call it out in a nice way. It doesn't have to be, on a war front, but you can do it in a nice way that the other person understands. Most of the time, people are not conscious that it is a typical image of a woman or a man. So bring it out, be aware of it, is what I would suggest. Unless Dr. Vibhuti Patel, can you say something more on that?
I think that's what I think. Yeah, it has come. This question has come again and again in all 4 days. And I think it's very important not to suffer in silence or not to take any kind of stereotypical behavior. You have to stick out your neck. You have to speak about it. You have to write about it. So use both your lung power and tongue power to challenge the stereotypes. Yes.
Yes.
Madam, your presentation was so detailed. You have explained the existing scenario, and I also suggested how we can bring about changes. No questions left to be unanswered. Secondly, I think what you're trying to drive home and in all the sessions is that charity begins at home. Let us not wait for some other person to start. Let us start it from our homes, where everything has to be, all the stereotypes, all the discrimination, right from our homes we have to start, and then you can think we are the society at the end of it. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, very true. Thank you.
Another thing that I'd like to come up with, ma'am, is the present generation. When the present generation is more into the social media concepts, making reels in Instagrams and posting the pictures and videos, most of the not just the males but also the female, but also the males are facing a lot of backlash in terms of trolls and the other things, and most of the all of this is actually discouraging the present generation, and also they are not able to come up with very confidently in these places, wherein I think that this is one of the very important aspect of social media that is coming up right now. Would you like to say something about it?
Yes, trolling on social media is the easiest way and the most cowardly way because you can hide behind some fancy name. You don't even have to expose yourself and so on. It is a very important thing, and I'm glad you asked that, brought that up, because everyone faces trolling, and the way to do. I mean, one of the way you could handle it is to ensure you transfer, if it's coming on Instagram, immediately take a screenshot or whatever, if it's coming on Twitter, and you send it to your network. So outdo the troll by the others saying, no, I agree to it. And, affirmative action, as they say, keep saying that what you put up is positive and it's good and so on. So you have to have a backup. As in a group of people who will support you, and keep sending it. Do not ignore the trolls. But if it's mentally affecting you, please get off social media for some time. Take a break, because it will, if it affects you mentally, it is going to have other effects. But you have to call out trolls. You have to show. People usually use, private messages and call you all sorts of names, or have sexual, words being used and so on. So bring it out in the open. Do not be afraid. There are also mechanisms where you can complain. Use that. That's one of the ways that you can. And as we become, masters in social media, I'm sure we will find many more avenues and many more ways to counter it.
Thank you.
I'll use the word masters again. Experts. Sorry for that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think we have Dr. Linda with us.
Yes,
She would want to throw some light on any of the topics. She's a speaker who will be coming tomorrow, but we are really glad that she has joined us even today. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
A very, very, very interesting presentation. I was very happy to hear. But I just wanted to make a couple of comments about not only about your presentation, but about maybe stereotypes in general. And it's the fact that they historically change. So I was very impressed by the pictures you showed of these kind of typical gender stereotypical ways of presenting women. But when we look at, this is the 50s, 60s, and when we look and see what is being stereotypical today, we find that that image has changed. The most important thing is that it's still putting women and the things we do in a secondary position. So I think we have to keep our eyes open, not, to see the pictures, but also be able to interpret them in new ways, to see the way they are kind of sublimating women while they're still talking the talk about, oh, look how progressive we are. Because often they aren't. It's just a new way of, subjugating women. That was my first comment. And then the second was about, I really enjoyed your discussion or your presentation about the way women in politics and maybe in big business as CEOs, the way they are accosted because of the way they dress, or the way people talk about who they are, or is their clothing who they are, or is it, do we forget that they have a brain simply because they are dressed in a certain way? And I just wanted to note here the kind of subtle ways cultural stereotypical pictures kind of become engaged or become more visible when women and powerful women are attacked because of their clothing. I mean, and often these are very small cultural differences that maybe I, as an American living in Sweden, wouldn't normally maybe understand, but you as an Indian woman or as a German woman, you would see immediately this is an attack. And I think, your suggestion that we be aware all the time and acknowledge these differences and, maybe show some support for women is very important. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for a really good presentation. I'm going to have a hard time tomorrow. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Linda. Ma'am, if you could please share the presentation because some of our participants are asking for it. You can share the presentation to any one of us and then we can share it to the participants here in the chat.
Sure. I will do that.
Thank you. Meanwhile, ma'am is sharing the presentation. We'd like to move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the second resource person of the day, the fourth day, and our resource person is Dr. Wahida Nayanar. She's an independent researcher consultant with 25 years experience on issues, women's human rights, gender crimes, impunity, conflicts, reparation, international law and justice in the capacity of researcher, coordinator, executive director, consultant, trainer, resource person, teacher, facilitator, and jury member in India and internationally. She led the advocacy efforts of the Women's Caucus of Gender Justice at the United Nations to integrate gender in the statutory documents of the International Criminal Court, and she is a member of the IRB of the International Institute of Population Studies in Mumbai. We welcome you, ma'am. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here. I actually was surprised to see Amity has a campus in Tashkent. I was not aware of it. I would like to thank Amity for inviting me and Professor Patel as well and Professor Banerjee. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I suppose I can go ahead with my presentation now. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. You can share your presentation.
So I'll just share my screen. Just a moment. All right, just a moment. Give me a minute. I don't know why I'm not getting. 1 second. We'll start again. Oops, excuse me.
Right.
Is that visible? Great. So I will have to begin with a little disclaimer over here. I'm at a place where right now I do not have any power, but that shouldn't be a problem. I have all my gadgets powered on, but I believe my Wi-Fi will be functional better if I stop the video. So with your permission, may I just shut the video off? Because I have an experience that it doesn't quite, the audio will be much better if I shut the video, okay? Right, thank you very much. Today, my topic will be accelerating equality empowerment through combating gender-based violence. This program is very interesting. Unfortunately, I have not been able to attend any of the other sessions because of prior engagements, but it clearly covers almost all various aspects of enhancing gender equality and empowerment. And today's topic being combating gender-based violence. Without further ado, I'll begin. The topics that I will be speaking on would be, of course, gender-based violence, the various aspects to it, the forms it takes, the prevalence, and various other statistics to explain the prevalence of it. Then we'll move on to talking about the contributing causes of gender-based violence and the various aspects of these causes. How do the gender-based violence kind of impact it has on gender equality and empowerment of women? What are the various measures that is in place to address the situation of gender-based violence? And of course, a brief conclusion at the end of the presentation. As we know, gender-based violence is a very vast topic, and there is a lot to say and speak about on each of these various aspects of gender-based violence. It's very, very difficult task to distill the material available out there on this topic into these 4 or 5 broad topics for discussion. Nevertheless, I have made some attempt here, and I'm sure some of some of the aspects or what I'm going to talk about has been left behind, which I'm hoping will come out in the conversation we have at the end of the talk. Continuing, gender-based violence, as we all know, is not really limited to physical violence. It includes social biases. For example, male preference that is rampant in our society. Indians, even today, celebrate the birth of a male child more than a girl child. This male preference has led to India having one of the lowest female to male ratios in the world. The 2011 census reported that there were 14 females per
So I think she's having problem with the connectivity.
You have lost. Let's join. Vaida, please unmute yourself. You are muted, Vaida.
All right, sorry, I'll share
Fine.
again.
No, go ahead.
Excuse me. So yes. So again, control of women's movement through cultural practices or women's movement or visibility, or a negligible allocation of girls' education for their professional or vocational attainment are all various forms of social biases that are part of gender-based violence. Or we move to the economic discrimination that also are various aspects of gender-based violence because of lack of education or low vocational skill. Women are restricted, have restricted entry to formal labor and being forced to use their skills they acquire by sheer fact of them being girls into low or no skill informal labor market, which causes them to be having low pay, unregulated conditions, gender pay gap, harassment and at workplace, and all of this forming part of the economic discrimination and aspects of the gender-based violence. The other would be the aspect of anti-women cultural norms and prejudicial religious diktats, restricted entry to places of worship, the imposition of dress codes about the length of their dresses or what parts of body should be covered, those kinds of diktats, or the consideration of widows and as inauspicious, the segregation during menarches, menstrual cycles, or child marriage. All these are aspects of anti-woman cultural norms that are part of gender-based violence. When speaking about child marriage, each year, at least 1.5 million girls under 18 get married in India. Nearly 16% of adolescent girls aged 15 to 19 are currently married. While child marriage has indeed declined, the decline has been marginal, from 27% in 2015 to 16 to 23% in 2019 to 2019-20, as shown in the National Family Health Survey data. Then on the prevalence of gender-based violence, where there is all these other forms of gender-based violence, social biases, economic discrimination, anti-women cultural diktats and religious prejudices, we move on to the physical violence that is more visible form of gender-based violence. Physical violence, of course, includes domestic violence, that is violence in domestic situation within families and extended families. Domestic violence cases increased by 53% between 2001 and 2018, according to the National Crime Record Bureau data. National Commission for Women data showed that domestic violence complaints doubled after the nationwide lockdown was imposed in India. The data is supported by the rise of domestic violence complaints in police stations across the countries. At the same time, confinement at home, constant monitoring and controlling decision making by the abuser, social isolation of the survivors from friends and family members, and reduced option for support registered a reduction in the call for help to domestic violence service providing organizations. So two things happening simultaneously that talks about the extent to which domestic violence was a big issue during the lockdown. On the one hand, you had police stations recording rise in domestic violence complaints, and the other hand, restricted support, ability to reach out for help and support was seriously curtailed as a result of the lockdown and proximity to the abuser within the homes. Then you have the intimate partner violence, which is violence, of course, by spouse, boyfriend, partners, live-in situations, husbands, and between any persons sharing intimate relationship, whether these are heterosexual or same-sex or other kinds of relationships. 1 in 3 women studies have shown that 1 in 3 women are subjected to intimate partner violence. Then you have these acid attack or acid throwing forms of gender-based violence, which is, of course, addressed to women who reject advances of suitors, who are then avenged with acid attacks that leave them disfigured, disabled, and traumatized for life. India sees over 100 acid attack cases every month. Then you have the female feticide. India, as I said, has one of the highest rates of female feticide in the world, that is achieved through sex-selective abortion of fetuses, despite the legal prohibition that is in place of the practice. As I already mentioned, the census figures of the lowest ever sex ratio in the age group of 0 to 6 years, with 3 million missing girls, which is from 78.8 million in 2001 to 75.8 million in 2011. You have the witch hunting practice. The reports of the National Crime Bureau 2015 says that 2,290 women were branded as witches, were hunted in India between 2001 and 2014. The victims are in most cases elderly women who may share some features, physical features, but almost always are accused of possessing some sort of supernatural or black magic powers, and therefore being hunted as witches. Then you have, of course, the dowry harassment cases and deaths. 35,490 Saudi deaths were reported in the country between 2017 and 2021. A very innocuous practice of sending daughters with gifts to tide through any immediate economic uncertainty has come to become this massive dowry system where girls' families burdened with various kinds of demands at the time of marriage with no regard to the willingness or the financial status. You have, of course, what is called dishonor crimes. A study of 24 cases between 2012 and 2021 reports that in almost all the cases, the victims or survivors have faced extreme violence from members of their own family who oppose the relationship or marriage. And this is not just intercaste or interfaith primarily, but also sometimes within their own caste and religion and faith, but against the wishes of the family and all. So certainly it is reported in cases of intercaste or interfaith marriages, but also for in cases of same-sex sexual orientation. That also has reported cases of dishonor crimes. In fact, in a case reported just a couple of days, a 30-year-old man killed his 12-year-old sister on the suspicion that she was having an affair. Now, the trigger was so, the trigger apparently was that the girl was having her first menses, about which she had no clue. And she didn't know and therefore could not explain why she had clothes with blood stains. So it is sheer suspicion of that the blood stain must have been through her having an affair or possibly, having had an abortion of some sort that she was killed. So these kind of cases are also the other part of the physical aspects of the gender-based violence. And then, of course, you have the sexual assault. With the number of reported rapes having doubled over the past 2 decades, this sexual assault on women are being now referred to as sexual violence pandemic. The National Family Health data suggests that 8.5% of women report being victims to sexual violence at least once in their lifetime. The rise in sexual violence in different states in India for a period of 2015 to 2017, based on the NCRB data, is between 30 to 95%. Worldwide, there is always a gap between reported prevalence and actual occurrence. Reported numbers being always an underestimation of the actual prevalence. Evidence suggests that only 1% of victims of sexual violence report the crime. And this is often due to feelings of shame, of guilt, of fear of discrimination, fear of further violence, fear of the family's fear of being stigmatized and ostracized within the community. There is the reporting numbers are always much lower. So the 8.5 percentage figure that we have is actually a small fraction of the actual number of survivors. Even as a modest estimate, an 8.5 prevalence of sexual violence affects an estimated 27.5 million women. So indeed, it can be termed as a sexual assault pandemic. Sexual violence frequently first occurs early in a woman's life from ages 15 to 19. For most women, many affected women survivors, 95.5% of times the offenders are known to the victim. News media reports some incidents of gender-based violence and sexual assault almost every other day. And I already mentioned the one that was reported a couple of days ago with the man killing his 12-year-old sister. The same day, 2 other separate crimes were also reported. One was of a man who stabbed and killed his girlfriend because he found her talking to her male working colleagues. And in another incident of moral policing, the security guard stabs a man because he was in close proximity to his girlfriend, completely taking over the agency of the woman or the girl or her choice to be, in fact, in close proximity with her man. So these are the various forms of gender-based physical sexual violence prevalent and their occurrence in and around different parts of the country. And I'm sure there are various others that has missed the list that I'm hoping can come out in the conversation. But that the extent is really high, and we see that also in some other macro statistics that we will see a bit later. Now, moving on to some of the contributing causes of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is, of course, often the result of unequal power relations between men and women. Cultural traditions reinforce the attitude that women are subservient to and less valuable than men. Although the degree to which traditions are observed, where these cultural traditions are observed varies by region and in different parts of the country, the prevailing perspectives that women are subordinate to men remains constant across board. The male-dominated society, the dominance of male, the male superiority within the understanding of the society contributes to gender-based violence in a wide variety of ways. For example, the concept of protecting of women's honor by practice of ghungat or parda or the veil that is practiced in several communities and families in different ways in other different parts of the country, emphasizes that the family's honor is determined by the actions of their daughter or the women in the family. So if she covers her body, if she practices abstinence before marriage or restricts her sexual expressions within the confines of marriage, and if she complies with the arranged marriage and chosen by her family, then her family is socially esteemed or has a place and in the community. If not, then they are any things that is not complied by, then the family is considered to be disgraced. So these aspects of the society are have contribute tremendously to various forms of gender-based violence that women experience. Similarly, I have already spoken about the practice of dowry, which has over time evolved into the present-day dowry system, where the groom's family makes all kinds of demands on the bride's family during marriage. The result is that daughters are being viewed as a financial burden and also contributing, therefore, to the male preference of the society. Then you have marriage and its dissolution and how that contributes to gender-based violence. There is a tremendous gender disparity in marriages. Men often have sole control over the financial resources in a marriage. With no resources of their own, women have little or no negotiating power in allocation of family resources for the development of girls and women, or indeed, bargaining or negotiating to stay safe from gender-based violence. The lack of resources attributed to their own development as children then leave them with no skills really to, have resources of their own. Among married women, a sexual assault is most commonly perpetrated by the husband. By contrast, among never married women, offenses are mostly by the relatives within the family. A large majority of divorced and deserted women remain financially dependent on their former husbands. Some of these women live in extreme deprivation and also with social stigma. Because of no skill, they are unable to enter labor market, and 41.5 such women have no income. They are left with no choice but to enter informal labor markets with the skills that they have attained by just being a girl child, that is of cooking, cleaning, caring, nurturing, and other kinds of house-related work, with the result that they have typically earn very low, often below poverty line. Some of such women return to their maternal homes, but most of them are rejected by their family and are forced to support themselves on very small incomes. Then we can talk about poverty and caste. Marginalized women are most vulnerable to sexual violence. That is, women who live in poverty, live in rural areas, have little to no education, or are divorced or have been deserted by their husband. They are highly vulnerable to sexual assault in their respective groups. By social class, women in the scheduled caste report the highest incident of sexual violence, and women in scheduled tribe have the highest incident for any ethnic group. And when we talk poor women being most vulnerable to sexual assault, even within the poor women, 72.4% are from scheduled caste or scheduled tribe. So those who are most vulnerable are most often from scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and from lower caste and class women. High levels of poverty and discrimination combine to make women frequent targets of gender-based violence. So scheduled caste and scheduled tribe women often suffer multiple discrimination. One is based on gender, then based on caste, and then based on class or their economic status. Such women suffer gender-based violence or are survivors from upper caste, upper class men who they interact with in the course of their lives. Then these could be in positions of power like landlords or police officers or their employers, as well as their husbands. Because caste and tribal discrimination is socially sanctioned and very much tolerated, even accepted in various parts of the country, upper class offenders often escape accountability and due process of law. So in these violence and sexual assault against Dalit and other women from marginalized communities are so rampant in those particular regions where they live, that there is very little outrage even when that happens as compared to any other cases. When such offenders go scot-free, they are more likely to be repeat offenders. And this creates a cycle where vulnerable, scheduled class, scheduled tribe women are repeatedly targeted for sexual assault and other forms of gender-based violence. Then you have criminal justice system, the failure of criminal justice system to protect women and punish offenders also contribute to continuing gender-based violence. Many cases taken to police are not investigated, and police often refuse to register cases. And this refusal is often due to combination of various factors, but primarily it is gender bias against women or caste bias against the women or the in favor of the caste from which the offenders are come, and the power they exert over institutions like the police. Where investigations are made, outdated and unscientific medical examinations are still widespread. Where more current examinations are conducted, gender insensitive techniques such as checking if survivors are sexually active are employed, giving results that have been used in court to claim consent to the violence and blame the victim. Very few offenders end up being tried in court, and fewer are convicted. And moreover, the court process of justice is extremely slow and takes many years due to various systemic problems with the criminal justice system. For example, there is a shortage of judges. There is approximately just 16 to 17 judges for every 1 million people in the country. So that being the case, the accountability takes very long, and accountability for crimes against women is the lowest priority. The other, of course, the reasons are the huge power imbalance and corruption in the system, where powerful offenders often influence the system and escape complete accountability for any violence that they are involved in. So a criminal justice system that lets gender-based violence offenders go scot-free, unpunished, then reinforces impunity for gender-based violence. And now moving on to the impact of gender-based violence. Some are very obvious, and it's very clear that what kind of impacts that would have on the survivors and generally. The first one, of course, is the physical and mental health of the survivors. Gender-based violence is among the reasons for poor health of women and girls. Generally, families allocate a small fraction of resources for development of women and girls, leaving them, for example, anemic or otherwise or underdeveloped physically, which then goes on to have tremendous various kinds of complications in their reproductive life, leading to poor reproductive health and maternal health in their life ahead. Gender-based violence also causes health problems such as of unwanted pregnancies, sexually transmitted diseases, and all other kinds of ailments. Survivors of violence often exhibit a range of mental health symptoms of depression, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, suicidal thoughts, and social anxieties. The survivors and the subsequent decrease in their ability to participate in social and community and accumulate resources for themselves is reduced dramatically, and this reduction that they experience in their potential of human development as a result of impact of violence on their physical and mental health is a huge loss overall of human capital. The education, there are various studies found that children who have been survivors of gender-based violence have poor educational achievement. These studies also say that some schools have, asked survivors of rape to leave and drop out of school, claiming that their attendance will taint the school's image or have other negative impacts on other school children. The studies also show that lower achievement tend to follow these survivors throughout their lives, and victims and survivors continue with low educational and occupational attainment in adulthood, or even from childhood to adolescent to adulthood. These findings are significant considering that most victims first experience with violence, gender-based violence, often happen before the age of 20. Among the economic impact of gender-based violence, this definitely causes economic loss for the survivors herself. So the immediate economic impact is visible, because for each incident of sexual violence, a woman loses an average of at least 5 paid work days. There are an increasing number of studies that talk of financial loss to the economy from gender-based violence. Some of these studies have suggested that India can boost its GDP by a figure like 700 billion by getting more women into the workforce. And the IMF study have shown that higher levels of gender-based violence against women and girls are associated with lower economic activity, driven mainly by a significant drop in female employment. The physical, psychological, and emotional violence that women experience makes it difficult for them to achieve or maintain a job. Now, this finding of the IMF study bears out in the Indian situation. Following the New Delhi rape, highly publicized rape of Jyoti Pandey in 2012, a study by the Indian Chamber of Commerce, ASSOCHAM, across several cities found that a staggering 82% of Indian women say that they are reducing their working hours, leaving the office early because they don't want to be traveling after dark when the risk of assault could be higher. Some quit outright, afraid that commuting has become too dangerous. Women's productivity in the IT sector dropped by nearly 40%. Now, that's a direct and immediate economic impact of one incident of sexual assault. It is very clear that women who choose to continue to remain in the workforce are doing it at increasing risk to their safety and security. The findings of these studies actually, macro statistics of gender in India also reflects this grim reality. India is ranked 135 out of 146 countries in the Gender Gap Index. This is the World Economic Forum report, which is a benchmark on gender parity on 4 aspects. One is economic opportunities and participation, education attainment, health and survival, and political participation. So within the economic opportunity and participation benchmark, India ranks 146 out of 143 out of 146 countries. So we are behind even countries like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. This is because of a very low women's participation in workforce. And this participation is also declined over a period. In 2006, 30.7% of working age women were in paid work. This figure dropped to 19.2 in 2021. The figure of women in corporate world is 22.3, and pay gap ratio is between 17 to 18%. And the number of informal workers in the informal sector, 94% of informal sector workers are women. 94% of total women workers are in the informal sector, and only 20% work in urban center. And as we know, informal sector is characterized by no social security, no job security, no health benefits, or paid leaves or sick leave, or any kind of regularity in income. Informal work sector in India, and the women who are engaged in this sector are often working as piecemeal worker, paid by per piece, and the extent to which how many pieces they make, or they are home-based workers. They are vendors on the streets on the markets and on the streets in urban and other areas, and or they are employed by agencies for various kind of in various service sectors. So this is a big economic impact of gender-based violence. Now we'll go on to look into various measures about combating gender-based violence. There are several governmental and non-governmental initiatives existing that have been introduced to combat gender-based violence, or generally as means to accelerate gender equality and empowerment of women. And some of the state initiatives are, for example, the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, which is launched in 2015 to address the sex selection abortion and the declining child sex ratio. Then you have the Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, which is launched in 2015 to promote welfare of the girl child, where it encourages parents to invest and build funds for the future studies and marriage expenses of the girl children. You have schemes for adolescent girls by the government, which aims to facilitate, educate, and empower adolescent girls to become self-reliant. Then you have the scheme by the Central Board Secondary Education System called the UDAN, which is to address the low enrollment of girl students in prestigious engineering institutions and the teaching gap between the school education and engineering entrance examinations. So that's another initiative addressing the question of girl children in higher education of the country. Then you have the National Scheme of Incentives to Girls for Secondary Education, a centrally sponsored key scheme launched in 2008, which aims to promote enrollment of girl children in the age group of 14 to 18 at secondary stage, particularly those who passed class 8, and to encourage secondary education of such girls. Then, of course, there are various other schemes that are existing in place for different communities and girls to access pre-matriculate scholarships, post-matriculate scholarships that are designed for specifically for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities. Then there are some for access to minorities and so on. So there are several of these schemes in place. Then you have the non-governmental initiatives, which are broadly following in two categories. One is prevention, and the other is victim support. Within the prevention, broadly, there are programs on gender equality education. So that several organizations have, within the part of their work, have created these programs. These programs are primarily implemented in schools and communities. The goal of the program is to promote gender equality by educating children, their parents, teachers, and the whole community as a whole. One experiment is to create schools with gender equal curriculum. For example, in all-girls school, Prerna, that was created in 2003 in Uttar Pradesh. The girls of the schools are from economically poor background, coming from the neighboring slums and communities. The gender equality education is central to Prerna's curriculum, where along with math and science classes, the girls discuss their current everyday challenges arising out of being a girl within their families and their communities, or discuss how to resist discrimination in the future, or they talk about the girl's worth, each girl's worth and value, trying to address the question of self-esteem and self-confidence. Another approach is to implement gender equality curriculum in already established institutions. For example, Breakthrough does this by training teachers who are supported by their staff. They train teachers of students of grade 7 or 8 on how to educate youth about gender equality. Activities and discussions related to gender are then planned into the existing school curriculum of these schools. Then the other prevention approach is also the media campaigns, which is a modern invention that uses all kinds of media, all forms of media, the print, the electronic, social, and popular culture, to provoke nationwide conversations about gender issues. One such campaign involved using community correspondence to record and report gender injustices. Video Volunteers uses a team of local correspondents, many of who are women from marginalized communities, to report, document by video about issues occurring in their communities. The correspondents receive training on how to record and post their stories with a wide range of issues, including gender inequality and gender-based violence. There are several hashtag campaigns that are initiated. One of it is the Share Your Story, hashtag Share Your Story campaign by Breakthrough again, with the goal to sensitize boys and men to sexual harassment and its negative effects. Women were encouraged to share their stories of sexual harassment with their sons and other male relatives, which are then post them to social media outlets using the hashtags. These are circulated by promotional videos, websites, print ads, and news agency. The idea is that use of media will circulate and create increased awareness of and discussion and conversations about gender issues and gender-based violence. Then you have other initiatives like forming vigilance group or watchdog groups, which are community organized groups that attempt to supplement efforts, police efforts to prevent gender-based violence against women. The success of these efforts is, of course, varied. In fact, all of these is varied. Two such watch groups examples are the Red Brigade in Uttar Pradesh and the community-based resource team in West Bengal. Members of the Red Brigade are often survivors of sexual harassment who then patrols neighborhood for harassment of girls. Red Brigade members are trained in self-defense and to report harassment and violence. The CBRT, or the Community-Based Resource Team, aims to identify and stop gender-based violence, and they report any incidents that they come across of girls being forced into marriage or brought into prostitution to the local police or the child welfare officers. All the youth that become members of the community-based resource team are trained by other more experienced team members. The other aspect of initiative by non-governmental organization is the victim support initiative. One main aspect of that is counseling. This is provided by various organizations where they offer services of one-on-one counseling, family counseling sessions, and form support groups with fellow survivors of abuse to overcome the trauma of gender-based violence. Some of them are based or work in coordination with police stations to identify survivors in need of counseling services. Vikalp Sansthan, for example, has created a counseling center that is located at the Women's Police Station in Rajasthan. When victims come to report crimes to the police station, then they are offered counseling and support services. Similarly, Disha has set up a support desk at police stations in Pune in Maharashtra. They conduct counseling sessions with both the survivor as well as her family. And after initial trauma counseling, Disha also provides support groups for long-term recovery of the survivor. Some organization trains victims and survivors to become counselors and advocates to advocate against gender-based violence. A Delhi-based organization, Rahi, experiments with advocacy training of gender-based survivors in a 2-day workshop where they discuss their experiences with fellow survivors, learn how to manage group discussions, give presentations, and create a personal social action plan, which varies, of course, according to each victim's interest and skill. The survivors then serve, after the workshop, they then serve as counselors in their individual communities for other survivors within the communities. Then you have the other aspect of legal support services and law reform. Because many survivors of sexual assault lack the ability or the resources to navigate criminal justice system on their own, some organizations provide legal assistance. Legal assistance include educating the survivors on their rights, helping them to file a complaint with the police, helping them to navigate the court system, and even providing legal representation from within the network of lawyers that the organizations have with them. Sahyog Trust in Pune, for example, conducts legal literacy workshops to educate victims about their rights, provide legal consultation directly on one-on-one as well as over phone, files complaints for victims, and helps with the representation. They also reach survivors located outside the main city by enrolling the services of lawyers who then are willing to provide services, legal services to such survivors from rural areas. Realizing that justice system is particularly inaccessible for scheduled caste survivors, another organization, Jan Sahas, focuses on survivors who they have supported earlier and provided aid to themselves receive paralegal training and become a barefoot paralegal volunteers. These barefoot paralegals then help other survivors to file complaints and claims correctly, which then the Jan Sahas network of lawyers take the case over to counsel victims through the legal process, support both the survivors and the witnesses of the case, and provide representation in the court. These are the various kinds of legal aid and support, that several organizations provide to survivors of gender-based violence. With regard to law reform, there have been one major law reform after the 2012 New Delhi rape case called the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 2013, where several changes were introduced in the legal in the laws dealing with sexual assault. And some of them are that it expanded the definition of rape, which earlier restricted it to penile-vaginal penetration, to include a wide variety of conduct as within the definition of rape. Then it includes other aspects like stalking or other sexual harassment of not an invasive nature, also as part of sexual assault. Then the officers who refuse to file sexual violence complaints, there is an accountability process included for that. There is the punishment is increased and enhanced from 7 to 10 years to 20 years for aggravated sexual assault, which is called like gang rape or rape of a minor or rape by police officials or public officials. Then there is also introduction of death penalty for aggravated rape or rape that leads to victim's death. Of course, there is huge debate about the deterrent value of death penalty. In fact, there is contrary studies that show that introduction of death penalty does not necessarily deter the occurrence of sexual assault. Rather, it could leave the survivor or the victim who could have otherwise survived end up being a victim and succumbing to her assault. So those are the law reform efforts in combating gender-based violence, sexual violence. There are several other studies that have documented the impact of these measures and the extent to which they have, in fact, been successful in combating gender-based violence or accelerating or in promoting gender equality and empowerment of women. One can say, for example, that the educational attainment figures have definitely improved over years. The figures for enrollment of girl child in schools, those figures have improved and dramatically, which used to be in the 20s and is now in the 60s. Similarly, literacy for girl child, these figures have also improved. There are many instances of women from marginalized communities accessing some of these schemes and benefiting from schemes. However, the recent figures show that these improvements are restricted to the level of primary. As soon as the education figure, higher secondary school, the dropout figures, though have lessened, it is that it is not the decline is not necessarily encouraging in terms of the percentage. That those figures can definitely improve. Similarly, girls staying in the education system, continuing with higher education or professional education and vocation, those figures are also leaves much to be desired. The other measures initiated by non-governmental organizations do have impact, but they are very localized, and those impacts remain at the local level. Unless these are implemented manifold, their impact at a macro level is yet to be seen. But certainly at the level of the communities where they operate, they have known to be effective. So several of these measures. In a conclusion, one would say is that these measures of combating gender-based violence have been effective and to a certain extent, both the governmental and non-governmental measures. But they would really be futile if they are not aimed at an eventual change in the fundamentals of society, which is from being a patriarchal, male-dominated one to a more gender-just and gender-equal society, which these fundamentals are among the main or the root cause of gender-based violence and ones that hinders equality and empowerment of women. So to improve and accelerate gender equality and empowerment of women, it is that all these measures that are there to combat gender-based violence must chip into this fundamental of society and turn it from being a patriarchal, male-dominant one to a more gender-just and gender-equal society. And I think I will leave it at that, and I look forward to the discussion and conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
How do I stop sharing? I'm sorry, there's stop
Yes.
share. Okay.
Vaida, now you can open your video.
Yeah, just a moment. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
I just will have just a sip of water.
Yeah.
Thank you, madam. That was a wonderful presentation. You have touched upon many things
Questions.
regarding gender, and you said that most of the violence takes place from within the family. That is very pertinent. So now we'll handing over to Professor Parveen Sharma. He will take up the question answer session.
Thank you, ma'am. So there are questions in the chat box and there are questions in the Q&A as well. We request all the participants, your questions, your observations that you wish to put on, you can place them in the chat. And I'm reading the questions, Professor Vaida, from the Q&A. So we have one question from Dr. Lata. So the statement goes as, India has reached to a level where people in rural and urban areas differ drastically in gender relations. Even in 21st century, access to education, media is a distant dream for women in remote areas of many parts of India. Are there any other effective tools to achieve gender equality at all levels and parts of the country?
Thank you, Lata Pujari, for the question. See, as I've already mentioned, some of the initiatives that are in place with regard to tools to achieve gender equality at all levels and all parts of the school, of the country, sorry. And but these measures can be taken up in various parts. If the success of one particular program project can be then replicated in other parts of the country, and also where governments that are introducing schemes and others to achieve gender equality can also take up other forms of gender equality measures that some non-governmental organizations have recorded success with, take it on as a state initiative and introduce it in different parts of the country, because that the state is equipped with resources and institutions that has a much wider reach than non-governmental organizations. So qualitative programs and projects that has recorded a notable success in any local area can then be taken up at the level of state and proliferated in different parts of country, including remote areas, through the existing systems that they have in place, administrative systems that the state have in place. And that is one way to do it. And also, I personally wonder why gender equality education actually cannot be included as a part of the curriculum of states itself, school curriculum, where if right from the time that children enter the education system at various level, at the levels of pre-primary, primary, secondary, which can be modified at different levels, about gender equality, and address these questions right from the beginning, and to reinforce the aspect of gender equality. I believe that also, if it is introduced within the formal curriculum system, or if not from primary, but at least with the secondary, which is where there the understanding of the differences of being girl child and boys, then it gets more enhanced, and the differences get more enhanced, at least at that level. gender equality be introduced as part of the formal school curriculum system. I think that would go a long way in as a tool to achieve gender equality.
Ma'am, thank you. Now, there's one more question as well as a concern. It came from Dr. Santosh that in case of crime against women, the law and procedures, they take a lot of time. And during this long battle, criminals are wandering free or the sufferer is also suffering more. So that's one of the reasons that people suffering don't go to legal procedures. What kind of changes are required and should be suggested or adopted in such cases from society as well as government? And here, ma'am, just one mention of a case, like one of the participants has shared that very recently an 11-year-old girl was married to a 40-year-old man, and because of the parents were unable to repay the loan taken by the parents, like from the man. So how can we like deal or maybe talk about such things, what approach we should be taking, and how we may not advise the government though, but how we need to be in a way active or concerned about it?
I mean, this is a macro question, and it questions. It is, it's a question that relates to the system as a whole, and system that even the Supreme Court is grappling with some of these questions, like questions of not adequate judges in the lower courts or in the lower districts and others, and the disparity it has with the number of judges and the kind of cases that and the number of cases that are there before them, and how that's a reason for the inordinate delays in the justice system, and of course including the system and justice for any kind of crimes against women. So that is a macro question that the government should, address at all levels. Increasing the number of judges, legal procedures, courts is one way of doing it, but that would not necessarily have an impact on justice for crimes against women, because there we are talking about even the mindset of those occupying these positions and these places, or as judges or other legal professionals, the extent to which they are themselves sensitive on matters of gender equality and gender justice, the extent to which that. So it is not only that the number of judges have to be improved, but also the unlearning and relearning of the judges of various societal notions about gender justice and gender equality that has to be be introduced within the justice system and this criminal justice system in the country. That again, I would say, I don't. There are some sort of small courses being introduced in law schools, but law schools are another area where there has to be integration of gender education in all aspects of law that is being taught. Not only one class on gender justice or gender crimes against women or women and law, but each and every, because if you're teaching contracts that have gender aspects to it, if you're teaching legislation that has gender aspects to it, if you're teaching rights that has gender, even corporate law has gender aspects to it, and how do law schools integrate gender within their entire curriculum? That is also something. Then those who are coming out of such schools, when they become advocates and they go on to become judges, they already have a base training on gender that is integrated in all aspects of law. So those are one way. And the case that you mentioned about 11-year-old being married to 40-year-old for lack of resources to repay that, this is a crime. There are laws about it. One is you cannot sell a human person. This is almost like selling. This is because it's an exchange. I cannot give you money, but instead I'm giving you something equivalent to money, which is this daughter. So those are crimes, and those are something that has to be dealt as a law and order situation. Of course, in addition to it being that I'm not sure that they would sell, for example, a boy, saying, here, they take this boy because she was there for being married to the man. There's an added gender aspect over there. So, and it happens because somewhere the family thought that that is an equal exchange, or the person who is demanding the repayment of the debt also accepted that it is a reasonable, or it's a valid exchange, that does getting the girl does repay the debt. So in the society that they are living, that it's considered to be an acceptable form of exchange. So that I'm saying that mindset of that society also needs to change. Yes, there has been outrage in some parts of the country, but is that outrage uniform, or is that outrage prevalent in the place or in the society where the two parties are involved? So that is also aspect of it.
Yes, ma'am. So we would also request Professor Vibhuti. She has been with us in all the sessions throughout this FDP. Ma'am, maybe you can add on questions as well, or you can initiate an interaction which will answer all possible questions from the participants. Ma'am, please.
I think first of all, I would like to appreciate what Dr. Vaida Nayanar has said in terms of structures and systems of patriarchy that perpetuates this gender-based violence. And she has also shown some of the examples, very important examples of those who are providing support and institutional support to survivors of gender-based violence. One-stop crisis centers, Government of India has already announced there are 200 one-stop crisis centers. We gender economists are fighting for allocation, more allocation, for budgetary allocation to run this one-stop crisis center, which has 5 types of service providers, right from hospital where a person is injured, the hospital, shelter home, protection officer, counselor, and also the criminal justice system. But the problem is that because there is no popular mandate, with the way we had throbbing women's movement in the 80s and 90s, it was happening. Gender sensitization program were introduced in police academy, in the judges training program, and then that has now not stopped. So I think we need to again, this and Justice Verma Committee report, the more awareness about it. Saksham report, which is mandatory for all universities and colleges to upload it on their website. It is mandatory. Okay, and Saksham report is so comprehensive. It was prepared in the year 2013 by the experts who were both very articulate on this issue and who had also experience of working at a ground level. They prepared this report. Appendix of Saksham report is so useful because there it has also given how in a workshop mode or how in a seminar you can integrate the question of gender-based violence and how to combat it. So I think, but there is, though it is there on UGC website, it is hardly used. So I think what is most important is to popularize this, and we already have resources. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. There are so many organizations who have kept all knowledge resources in public domain. You have partners in law and development. All issues regarding gender-based violence and legal system are there. Posters, training modules, everything is there. You have a website of Jagori where the literature on gender-based violence in Hindi is available. So how to use these resources and to reach out to more people? I think that is, we are at that stage where we need to bring these issues in a public debate. And the other most important thing which comes out is that how the gender minorities are treated. And even in women and women development cell, we need to make it women and gender development cell, because the problems of sexual minorities, brutalization, that is happening in a big way. In fact, recently 6 organizations have come together and come out with a report when you are domestic violence against LGBTIQ community. That report is there on several websites. I think if possible, I will also upload it here. And I think Saksham report, these 2 are very, very important. We need to.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So we may be having something from Professor Vaida also.
Yeah.
You've heard and you may want to add on.
Yeah.
No, I think she has, complemented and added with various other existing gender equality programs at various level, that all that. But, as she said, the resources, there is still the struggle to find resources to, to implement some of these programs that are there. And I believe all of these are ongoing struggles. And, over the years, because of the efforts of all the organizations, both governmental and the other organizations that Vibhuti have named, women's organization, the awareness is not necessarily that it's not there. Its reach is it needs to be needs to be enhanced, and these awareness also needs to be taken at all kinds of remote levels. And things have improved a lot. It just in terms of when you're talking about the impact or how it has done, how the status is today. I sometimes wonder whether, whatever it is, like many steps ahead, all the steps that Vibhuti mentioned, there are so many steps ahead, and then we have fallen a few steps behind. So on various issues, like particularly with the issue of sexual assault and all that. Because I believe of, larger politics of the country and where that is going and all of that, and its impact on these issues. So there is, I believe, chipping into the work that women's movement have done over the years on gender-based violence, both not only raising the awareness about it and addressing measures to combat it. There's been a lot of work that has happened, and Vibhuti has named quite a few already. But at the same time, and a lot has been achieved. At the same time, when one looks at what is happening around us, there has been also that as if so much efforts has not happened at all. Where has the impact of it has gone, So the effectiveness of these measures, of this work that women's organization, gender equal, various professional has put in, you still have to popularized it a lot more, and the challenge is greater now than it has been, I believe, even when the women's organization started working on it. So there's a lot of work that is happening that has to continue and being popularized and reached out, dissemination of it at various levels. Yeah.
I have shared the resources in the chat box. Yeah.
Thank you.
There is one question, ma'am. It is from Dr. Kalpana Menon, and it says, it adds to the concerns that we have just raised that way. She says, training and majlis and all that provide counseling. Why are we not looking at stronger deterrents for men and society responsible for the gender-based violence?
Stronger deterrence for men. What can be more stronger than death penalty?
It is there.
But the fact is that it is not a deterrent. Death penalty is really not a deterrent. So I am not sure that stronger deterrents really have any kind of impact with regard to, addressing gender-based violence. Because if the penalty or the punishment for killing a person and raping a person is the same, that is death penalty, then there is a notion. Some studies have also organization have put out studies to say that there is a lot more fear that rape will end up in assault, not only assault but also killing, to prevent the woman for being reported for the crime of rape. So if there is any offender who is raping, then the fact that there is punishment is the same, then you might as well kill the woman so that there is less evidence of, you know, any kind of rape. So there is that one view also there. Plus, if one is looking at a generally creation of a humane society, death penalty from a human rights perspective is not something that anybody can really support. So I do not think stronger deterrent, you know, and short of death penalty, there is punishment, you know, there is punishment for life and all that the Criminal Amendment Act has introduced. There's all kinds of debates about the extent to which those are also effective. But more than those kinds of deterrent, the idea is to see how do you change, you know, the society, the second part of this of the statement, and that is a challenge. And that is where I feel that the society, despite so many advances, both in terms of educational attainment, there is a rollback, as we have seen with the women going back to their homes. From you know, the being out there in the workplaces as a direct impact of gender-based violence, there is that rollback. So we today's day and age, we are seeing what I would call a rollback from you know, understanding of a gender equal society to kind of being more in defense of a nearly a patriarchal society. There is that mindset is more prominent these days. So that's the challenge, and how do you address that? And the forces that are advocating for gender equality, for empowerment of women, for you know, human rights for all, for you know, sex equality, and these values are not so much their influence, I would say, has been dented, as opposed to it's the other voice that is more louder, it's more prominent, it's more powerful, it's got more weight. So that's the phase where we are in. So I see a little bit of rollback that has happened with regard to, you know, gender equality as a desirable value that needs to be pursued. That I see a certain bit of rollback on that, and that needs to be reversed. And the tools to reverse there already exist. That's what Vibhuti has pointed out, the amazing number of tools that exist out there in the public domain. Those tools exist. But the idea is to how to get those tools out and how to make them more influential, and how to get back the voice of the sections of society that, you know, believes in promotion of gender equality and, you know, empowerment of women, and the positive and that those are positive values to be pursued in the life of a nation as a whole. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. We are just checking out all the participants. Like we do have these files in the chat sent by Professor Vibhuti, and we shall be very, I would say, appreciative of all of you. You can take screenshots. Meanwhile, if in between you see something like that you need to take a record, it has been a favor from the side of Dr. Vibhuti that she has been working on this and then trying to resolve your queries very quickly. And all these presentations that we have, at the end of when we'll be sending you certificates, everyone, we shall be sending a Google Drive link where all these presentations shared by all our resource persons will be together in that folder. So everyone who has registered, we shall be sending this thing along with the e-certificates. So before we conclude, ma'am, for tomorrow, we wish to invite both of you as well. The valedictory will be taking place at 5. So we shall be felicitating online for now, but we wish that someday we are able to, and we shall be meeting here as well. So the felicitation will be happening online. So all resource persons from day 1 will be joining at 5, which is Tashkent time. So 5:30 for India, I would say. So we invite you for tomorrow as well. We shall be posting proper information in the resource persons group as well for you.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being with us, and thanks on behalf of the complete Amity University fraternity around the world, and on behalf of all the participants as well. They're highly appreciative of you,
Thank you.
ma'am. Thank you very much. So all the participants, thank you for being with us. And tomorrow will be the end of this FDP, but in a way, a new beginning for all of you, because the paradigms or the colors of discussion on gender equality or gender that way you have seen will be taking new heights tomorrow with 2 more resource persons coming up. We invite you for tomorrow, and don't forget that tomorrow's session will be starting at the same time. At 5, we shall be having the closing ceremony online, and you all will be with us. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well done, Clay. By that, I think.
Thank you. We can conclude the session from the side of IT as well.